Welcome back for another episode of the Maine State of Mind. I'm your host, Justin Soderberg. This episode, we welcomed Josh Moulton from Queen City Cinema Club for another version of Movie Night. This time around, we talked our top 10 favorite comedies. Some crossovers, some not, some out of the box thinking, some historically classics, but this is a comedy episode. So we laughed, we enjoyed each other's company, we talked about comedy movies, put our top 10 lists out for everybody to hear. I really enjoyed talking to Josh and having this episode. I really enjoy these movie night episodes because they're all about movies. So you can visit Josh at Queen City Cinema Club on Main Street in Bangor if you live in the greater Bangor area. He's open Wednesday through Sunday. You can find all that information out on his website, queencitycinemaclub.com, or find him on Facebook or Instagram. While you're on the internet, if you give us a little bit of a like or a follow, or share us, that'd be great. You can rate us on Apple Podcasts. You can follow us on Spotify. You can also watch this video on YouTube. We appreciate every little piece you guys all can do. This is episode 42 with Josh Moulton from Queen City Cinema Club, talking movies, our top 10 favorite comedy movies on movie night. Thanks a lot, guys. Enjoy. What's up, Josh? How you doing, man?
Not much, man. Good. How about you?
Trying to stay busy, trying to stay safe. Probably the same thing you're doing.
Absolutely. Definitely don't need to try too much to stay busy. I didn't stop last week. I had a week.
I think we're all having weeks. I think we have like it's like one of those things that like I was talking to Abe about at OBC. We have some stuff that we're working on, and it's like thinking back on it. Why couldn't this crap happen in the middle of like when we're doing nothing, when we're open to the public and all that stuff?
Right.
Now we're gearing towards dates, trying to figure out when we're going to open again, and now we're dealing with some other stuff, and it's just like, why couldn't all this crap happen when we had things time to do it? Now we have no time to do it, and now we're working on it.
Yeah. I went down and picked up a new pinball machine for the arcade. I got a Terminator 3 Rise of the Machines. It is awesome. But our truck got stuck in his driveway for like 2 hours.
Oh, because it was warmer out because of muddy or snow?
No, well, it was just icy and the tires were bald, and so that started my week. We lost a grill, we lost a freezer, and I fell on the ice for the first time all winter. It was one thing right after another.
It's a random time to fall on the ice.
Yeah, the other night, black cat ran across my path, so I think my luck might be changing for the better.
But you know what? If you're busy, you told me before we started recording, you're getting phone calls for reservations. That's good. So hopefully people buying food and playing that pinball machine will help pay for the loss of a grill and a freezer.
Right. Yeah, for sure. But that's the thing is the food, man. Tiffany is just killing it with the food. We got a mac and cheese waffle right now, covered in cheese sauce and bacon. It is decadent and just unreal. And we also put a pickle and cheese dip, which I don't know if I've ever really seen a pickle dip before.
I don't think so either, but when I saw it, it made me want to try it. So like it's one of those weird things. It's like it used to be that I looked at Queen City Cinema Club's Instagram, Facebook page for like, oh, what beers you have on, or what specials you're running for your theaters, or when what's your hours and stuff like that. Now I'm like looking at like what's the next thing they're gonna come out of that kitchen with.
Yeah.
And now you're up for top pizza place in Bangor, right?
We're in the tournament. So make sure you go and vote. It's not like really what we concentrate on or do, but I've had plenty of people be like, you got the best cheese pizza in Bangor. You know what I mean? So if you liked it, or you just like want to get us some exposure, which is really what it's about, go ahead and vote. I think it's on
I voted Bangor Daily News.
Yeah. Cool.
But so they have pizza. You guys have pizzas. Everything's great. We've bought food and ate there. We've bought food and taken it home. We're trying to figure out, with Taylor a little bit round now on the front. It's a little bit more difficult to do things, but we're going to try to get out and do something soon. But we might have to book, just like Jay Cochran. I went and got my new tattoo. I don't know if you can see it on here.
Oh, yeah.
On Thursday, just like him, though, I'm going to have to book for you guys like 6 months in advance.
Yeah, for real. Yeah, we got a bunch of, good friends of mine for the most part, but a bunch of people coming in to watch like Mortal Kombat. We'll start streaming on HBO Max, so I got theaters booked for that, but that's like a ways off. And then I don't know, Justice League or something. There was something else that had a date, and like I'm like, wow, we're booking into like May.
It's like I went and saw Jay, and I was like, so I when I set my appointment for Thursday, I also like a week later was like, hey, can I just book an appointment for May as well? Because I just know you're gonna book up, and I just want to get in
Yeah,
there.
yeah,
And he's like, yeah, sure, no problem. He put me down on the schedule and stuff like that. So like when I went in for my appointment on Thursday, I was like, I'm thinking like, hey, have you opened your books up yet? He goes, yeah, I'm booked until October. I'm like, damn,
right.
man, geez,
Yep,
bro.
yep,
That's
yeah.
not like,
Sam Wood, same shop, Forecastle. That's the guy I go to. I think we're like 6 months between appointments right now.
yeah.
And then I also actually booked with Chad Chase out of Venom in Sanford. I'm going to do a ghost tattoo, and I had to like write a whole application and everything like that, and that's in like October.
And that's like, yeah. So I was just talking, Jay's like talking to me. He's like getting to the point with like my barber. My barber stopped taking new clients because he's
Right.
just like, he has so many clients and he'd like to be like the people who have been in with him a long time. Plus,
Yep.
Jay, talented tattoo artist, but also wants to tattoo things that he wants to tattoo. Same with Sam and some of
Right.
these other people.
Right.
So they have the ability now. He's like kind of like one of those things where he's like, yeah, I'm kind of booked right now. And then he
Right.
holds a couple appointments here and there open so that he can
Right.
get the people in that he wants to actually
Right.
tattoo.
Yep.
No offense to anybody else, but he also wants to
Sure.
talk to people he wants to talk to. So
Yeah.
if you're
Yeah. Yeah.
tattooing someone
Yeah.
that takes 3 or 4 hours, you want to have a
Right.
good conversation for 3 or 4 hours, not with someone who
Yep.
won't speak or
Right.
is about to pass out or anything like that.
Yep.
So Jay's like, I wish I could
Absolutely.
just tattoo like me, and he named a couple of our friends off,
Right.
and just you tattoo you guys all the time. And I'm like, well, if you did that, I wouldn't have any money, dude. So
Right.
like, you'd
Yeah.
have all
For
my
real.
money.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But yeah, they should be able, just like anybody, that's the goal in your business is to be able to be doing what you want to do and do what you do best and, associate with people that you want to associate with. Like all we're looking for is like freedom. So, I mean, like you and I and Jay and Sam, we all have really good situations. I think it's like you know, something for people to work towards to,
But it's
work
it's
forward
like for
to.
you too. I can picture you being like, okay, I'm booked all the time, and now
Right.
you have to almost apply for someone to book a theater, and someone's like, I
Right.
want to watch, and it's like Barney. You're like, sorry, we're
Yeah.
booked that night.
Yeah. Yeah.
I want to watch,
Yeah.
something else. You're like, oh yes, you could have the theater
Yeah.
that night.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, like right now we're young enough, like the money's all the same. I don't care what you watch as long as you pay me.
Yes.
You know what I mean? But I do have a special like sense of pride anytime somebody comes in and like picks out a movie that like, I love or is like a little more obscure or considered a classic. I'm like, all right, cool. You guys should come back more often.
Well, it's just like that in any art, really. It's like if you are an art, a musician, but you're a fan of a musician and you pick a song that's like kind of like one of their favorite songs, but not a popular song,
Right.
those musicians are gonna be more apt to be like, oh, that's pretty cool. You like that song? Or like, I brought a comic book to get signed by George Perez a number of years ago to Comic Con, and it was obscure first American appearance of Captain Britain. And
Yep.
he's like, no one ever has me sign this comic book.
Yeah.
It was like I felt special because of it. It was really like one of the only comic books that I owned at the time by George
Yeah.
Perez.
Yeah.
But it was cool because he like loved that deep cut almost. So it's the same
Right.
thing. If someone comes in and rents a movie and puts it up on the theater, you're like, ah, that movie sucks. You're not gonna
Right.
say that, but like
Yeah.
the idea that someone comes in and like picks one of your favorite movies, you're like, oh, that's pretty
Right.
cool. This guy's
Yeah.
watching, and you
Yeah.
can have a conversation about it, and that's
Right.
pretty cool too.
And yeah, there was a running joke before we opened actually. Talk about what kind of vibe I wanted to present and the fact that we wanted to kind of concentrate on education stuff like that. So the movie that we always made fun of and would be like, oh, are you gonna come in and watch Good Luck Chuck? And I have actually quite a few people come and watch Good Luck Chuck. So, but that's cool.
No
I
judgment.
own it. I can't say anything. I own it.
Well, I always said that too when people look through my movies. They're like, "You own that movie?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I got it on sale." I'm trying to justify. I'm like, "Well, I own the movie, so why am I justifying this?" No, it's the same thing with Taylor and I when we own up to the fact that National Treasure is one of our favorite movies. So just own up to it. Like it doesn't. You
Yeah.
don't have to like come up with
Yeah.
excuses of why.
I mean, wait until you see my top 10 comedy list.
So let's get into that actually. So
Yeah.
speaking of that, we're here to talk top 10 comedies. And so I mentioned a little bit, there's a little cool thing is I was born in 1986, and a lot of these movies actually happen to revolve around the 80s to early 90s, which is pretty cool. Not to give anything away, but I think it's pretty cool that things can stand the test of time, which is pretty awesome.
For sure.
As well as they don't make things, that old cliche saying they don't make things like they used to. I think that's true in comedies. I think in every other genre you can evolve to a point where movies can get better. I feel like comedy is one of those things that they just like at one point took a cliff and jumped off the cliff and either went, like we mentioned before, they put the name of the movie, the theme of the movie in the name, or they try to go so slapstick or so raunchy to try to make it funny that it kind of just goes almost too far. So we'll do our top five, our bottom five, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6 together like we've done in the past. Josh will read his, then I'll read my 10 through 6 more quicker, and then we'll go back and forth 5 through 1 like we've done in the past if you've listened to any of these podcasts, and we'll dive a little bit more maybe into those. We also made the rule a few podcasts ago about not giving away if your movie is up further on your list that one of us also has lower on our list. So do you have any honorable mentions?
I guess I would just say that there's no way that you can fit like all the great comedies into a top 10 list. So each time that we've done this, I moved, I think the first time I was like more along the lines of like, if I was going to write a top 10 list for general consumption, with maybe a couple of my favorites thrown in. The second time it was like a little more half and half. This time I had to go, I'm like on pure rewatchability. This is the movie that I'm going to keep, because like a comedy, once you hear a joke, is it really that funny the second time you hear it? So if you have a comedy movie that you can watch over and over and over again, still laugh out loud, these are the movies that I like show my sons, like they're both 16, or Malachi will be 16 on Wednesday. Hunter just turned 16. So these are the movies that like I bring home and like, we have to watch this, you know what I mean? And then they're like, what the hell was that?
Well, it's a 2 for me. And again, I don't give away if they're on your list because they're probably not, but just don't give away from me. But 2 are actually by the creators of South Park. To me, with Basketball and Team America World Police. And those 2 movies, again, are that they're fairly newer. I mean, 98 is for Basketball, and 2001, again, according to my list, is newer. But 2 of those movies that were like that borderline super slapstick, kind of like raunchy, but also like super funny. But also I couldn't, the number of movies that are out there that are funny, so, I couldn't put them in the top 10. So
they're both probably actually in my top 10. Also Cannibal the Musical. Check that out if you haven't, But I think Trey Stone and Matt Parker are just genius, and I love both those movies. I looked at them, and I have a top 10. They should be in it. They're not. But like, what I was gonna say is just like, well, I guess maybe there's a lot of classics that, and there's a lot of things. This is one thing that I did find, and I'll leave it at this, is movies that were so funny when they came out that you watched them so much and they gained so much exposure and everybody's quoting them, and eventually they get played out. So there's like, I can think of 3 right off the top of my head right now that just like blew up culturally so big that now I can't really watch them because I know everything about it. I've watched it a million times. It's just not new to me anymore. Whereas the movies on my list, even though I've watched them as many times, still hit that funny bone. So,
Sweet. So do you want to go 10 through 6 and I'll go through 10 through 6?
Sure thing. So my number 10, probably nobody's ever heard about it, but I always recommend it when anybody wants to watch a funny movie. It's called Hamlet 2. It's it's a guy, he's a drama teacher, and he basically just rewrites Hollywood movies into plays for his high school drama club. Like he's the teacher, the director, and they're just horrible. And then they cut the drama. It's like the typical story. They cut the drama program. They have to find a way to save it. But there's just a lot of weird stuff in it. They do like a musical about sexy Jesus, and just little moments. They're like a lot of these movies for me, there's just these little moments that anytime I see them, that's it. I'm gonna, and it's just like things that are tucked in. It's not even like the main joke or anything like that. So number 9, Hot Rod. The theme of this list is probably like you're gonna be like, these movies are so stupid. But for some reason, I just love like the dumbest movie. So Hot Rod, Andy Samberg's face just makes me laugh.
Yes.
Number 8, Tim and Eric's $1 billion movie. It is disgusting and weird and wacky and wild stuff. I love the show, and the movie is, very, very much stays true to the show, but puts it in like a cinematic form, which is cool. A lot of good cameos. I still do my John C. Reilly taquito impression at least once a week. Number 7, I wish I could put this higher, but there's just a bunch of others that really rise above them. Tenacious D and the Pick of Destiny. I don't think Jack Black's like one of the greatest comedic actors of our time. Like I was thinking about his movies, I'm like, he's like, I liked High Fidelity,
Yeah.
but like, Nacho Libre, School of Rock was pretty good, but it's just like, I think he's the funniest person on the planet. I'm not sure if he's like made for movies necessarily.
Yeah.
And in Tenacious D, there's that lane for him to fit into, and that's another one where it's just like little tiny moments everywhere, just sprinkled in, and you're just like, like I said, I like the weird stuff, but I hope that I get a chance to see them at Bonnaroo when they reschedule it, because that's bucket list right there. Number 6, How High, Redman, Method Man. So another actual musicians going into acting. I was thinking about it on the ride down. They're actually like pretty good in that movie, like as far as acting, like they very, I think the rap career kind of lends itself to being outgoing and creating like a character, and but again, it's just like boom, 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 and just like so many memorable moments. And that's really like kind of where my list came from, was like, I'm going to think of the name of this movie, and then all of a sudden I'm going to have like 8, 10, 12 moments flood back to me where I'm just like, that is so, I would watch that right now, So Hamlet 2, Hot Rod, Tim and Eric's $1 billion movie, Tenacious D and the Pick of Destiny, How High. I love Red Meth. Red's like my favorite, Meth's awesome. Yeah. And
I love it because those, I'm pissed at you because you said How High, because I don't have that on my list, and now I'm like going back and rethinking everything. And I'm sure every time we do something like this, we always start doing that. We're like, oh crap. But again, we're in a category now that there's so many movies in that category. And speaking of that, there's a thing I want to remind myself to try to do at the end and talk about. It's just in case it's on your list. I don't want to say anything, but there's another thing I wanted to bring up at that point. But I'll go through my 10 through 6, and we'll go from there. So number 10 for me is a movie that, again, I had to think of, is it not the greatest comedy of all time, but also I went on that thought process of rewatchability, and kind of is in the same vein as How High, which is Grandma's Boy. Grandma's Boy is one of those ones that I just, every single time I watch it, every joke lands over and over and over again. A stoner who is a video game tester. It's a Happy Madison production, so it's got the actors that are in, Billy Madison and all the Happy Gilmore movie, all that stuff. So I just think it's funny. Again, it's one of those things that's never going to win any awards, and a lot of people are gonna be like, "You kidding me? That's a stupid movie." But I'm like, comedy is a movie you put on, you want to laugh. Again, has quotes from it, has things that you remember back and forth on it. So there's that. Number 9, I had to go with Dumb and Dumber. Again, quotable movie that's a classic movie. Jim Carrey at one of his best moments. He's done a lot of good movies, but like that's up there. Number 8 is Shaun of the Dead. And that's mainly because I'm not a huge horror film and slasher film and more like you are. But I do find that this is like a cool way of poking fun at that in a sense. But like there's, again, I feel like one of the biggest things about comedies, like you mentioned, is quotable comedy movies. And I think there's a lot of lines that come from these movies. And again, it all makes me want to rewatch it. Big Office fan. So, rewatching The Office over and over and over again. Steve Carell got his job basically on The Office from my number 7 pick, which is the 40-year-old virgin. He showed who he could be as an actor. And they basically said, no, we want that person to come on our show. So number 7 is the 40-year-old virgin. Number 6 is Office Space, workplace comedy. Again,
You just screwed my whole list up. You got
and so
the Team America Police.
yes,
Now
Office
Mike
so,
Judge.
yeah, it's just classic. I mean, I don't know. I mean, you can't say comedies, in my opinion, in my lifetime and not have that somewhere in that top 10, top 20 list. Again, it's all personal opinion.
Sure.
But I just think that Office Space is one of those ones that you can watch over and over again. And I guess it's not, there's quotes in it. I don't think it's as quotable as some other movies. I think it's more like visual moments in that movie where you see things. I mean, obviously, Have You Seen My Stapler is a huge statement.
Right.
Gats Have You Come and Work on Saturday, and the smashing of the printer, though. That's the thing that like a lot of people notice from that movie.
Yeah.
Take the printer out and smash it.
Yeah.
So,
I mean,
Grandma's
it's very
Boy.
memeable.
Yes, and that's the thing. It's the visual thing I think about it.
Yeah. I just watched
Grandma's
it.
Boy at number 10, Dumb and Dumber at number 9, Shaun of the Dead at number 8, The 40-Year-Old Virgin number 7, number 6 is Office Space. So I will say, it's funny how different they are, but again, I don't. There's so many movies to pick from.
Right.
It's not as simple, and that's one of those things that I think Josh and I will work on in the future. Is like I think I want to do a more poignant, like I even thought taking 10 movies and putting them in an order. Like we know the top 10 movies are going to be, you just don't know what order they're going to be in.
Right.
But not that there's anything wrong with this. I'm just saying that like
no, that'd be fun.
So that's funny. I like how he didn't have anything pretty much on the same side of it, but there are some like similarities to the two lists.
Yeah, absolutely.
And again, I think part of it is the idea of quotability. I think that's one of the same thing with stand-up comedy. I mean, if you were to watch, Jack Black do stand-up comedy, you're gonna want to like quote his comedic stand-up,
right?
Whereas that's what they put into movies. So yeah. Any thoughts on any of mine? Top 10 or bottom 5, I should say.
Yeah, I mean, I think most any of those could have gone in my top 5 or my bottom 5 or the next 10 to 15, you know what I mean, like and like you said, I think there's like a common thread here where it's just kind of like it's still going to make you laugh, you know what I mean, like that's the whole point. So if it still makes you laugh after you've seen it 100 times, you know what I mean. But yeah, you screwed me. I wouldn't put, so actually I'll just say it now, I wouldn't put Office Space in my top 10. Like I said, I just watched it like a week ago, 2 weeks ago, and it's awesome, but probably wouldn't crack the top 10. Idiocracy, though, I had left off my list, and I would probably try to find a place to sneak that in.
Well, and I feel like one of those things that we talk about all the time is these little lists that we come up with prior to it, but then you may have had a conversation with your wife or someone else about the idea of making this list, but like until you actually get involved in hearing the other person's list, and then when your brain starts to, the gears in your mind starts to work and go, well, maybe if I slid this person out of the top 10 and put this one in it, it might work better. And in the sense, like we could do top 25s and not be excited and happy about it. So
I definitely like just doing the list, like the final draft. I had to cut like 3 or 4 off like 5 minutes before we came on. So
I put a list of like, there's like a list of 20 here. And I tried to then go up and look at like the Rotten Tomatoes rankings and be like, well, maybe that's going to get me to do it. And then I'm like, no, but I definitely want that one on the list. And it's not a high ranked movie. That didn't work.
So
let's get into top 5 so we can do some discussions on that. What's your number 5?
My number 5 is Zoolander. Another common thread for my films here is that I would watch a movie and go, that is the dumbest thing I have ever seen. I can't believe I just wasted an hour and a half watching it. And then like a week later, I find myself thinking about it and thinking about it and thinking about it. And I go back and watch it and it just gets funnier every time. If a movie gets funnier every time you watch it, it belongs in your top 5. And I would say, I mean, for my 5, that's definitely the case. And Zoolander's, right there. Like you said, lots of quotes, very memeable, just like outlandish characters. Everybody's like pitch perfect as far as how they play the characters. Will Ferrell is genius as Mugatu, the whole Owen Wilson, Ben Stiller thing. And it's just, I love that movie. It's so stupid.
It's stupid, but it's funny. Abe was chose at OBC. Abe was chose to do a photo shoot of a mountain biker in Maine, and it was at Sugarloaf and so on. So when we knew he was doing this photo shoot, which should be coming out fairly soon, Mark in the office kept on making quotes from Zoolander just to make him feel awkward and weird in the office. So it's pretty funny how you bring that up as your number five, because again, that happened this week.
For
The
sure.
other thing is to think back on those two characters don't have a ton of like, they have some good comedy movies separate, but I don't think they have any super home runs like Zoolander was, and they were in the same movie.
Right.
There's a couple of really, really good movies, and it's possible that they could be in top fives, but they're like the level that Zoolander brought them to, or have them at, and the fact that it took them that long to make a second one was also pretty crazy. The same thing with Dumb and Dumber, like I mentioned, my bottom five, is that it took them forever to make a sequel to a movie that was so successful, which is kind of good because the second ones weren't as good as the first ones. But it just surprises me. Sometimes there's like, oh, money bags, let's make a new one right away. And they didn't do that with Zoolander, didn't do that with Dumb and Dumber, but they did eventually. So
Super Troopers was another one.
And they had to do a fundraising for that one.
So
they wouldn't. Yeah, go ahead.
I do have one question. Can Abe turn left?
Yes.
Oh, okay. That's good.
It was so funny though. They paid him money. They were like, we like your look, and we're like, Abe's look. And it was funny because at the time he hadn't got a haircut in like, I don't know, 2 months, 3 months. And so his hair was all over the place. I sent him a picture of Heat Miser. His hair, like, cause he has like this reddish hair, and it was like up straight up like that. And I was like, oh my God, man, you look like the Heat Miser. The next day he got a haircut, and then he told us about this thing. Well, I guess he sent him a picture from a long time ago, a different Abe. And I'm like, oh, okay, they definitely would have picked you as a photogenic person with that haircut. But I can't wait to see what those photos come out like, because he said it was like a big $15,000-$20,000 production. It was like a huge thing, some sort of magazine thing. I don't know. He said it was pretty cool. Like they had a COVID tent, like a testing tent there, and they had like $1,000 cameras. It was crazy. He said it was the most professional thing that he's been to, and he's like, it's him. It's Abe.
Right. Yeah.
No offense, Abe, but it's not But
I get it.
Okay, number 5, Zoolander for Josh. Number 5 for me, it's mainly because my dad was a musician growing up, and he would play in bars and restaurants and things like that. And because of that, he had instilled all the musician things to us. So number 5 on my list is Spinal Tap. Again, another movie that I feel like I watched hundreds of times growing up. In 1984, the movie came out, so it's got that historic. But the thing about it is, it's like you would think that it's a comedy or a mockumentary about the 80s musician, but made it in the 80s. That's the funniest thing about it. It's something that you'd think that someone would come up with in 2021 to mock the 1980s musician, but they did it in the 1980s, which was even better because it's like they're mocking themselves in a sense. And then, you know, the different things that, as someone who played music growing up, played in bands growing up, the different funny things that you'd want to do to make your stage performances so much better. And every time they did something, some shitty thing would happen. You know, when they need Stonehenge, not instead of the big Stonehenge, they had the little tiny Stonehenge. And when you get stuck in the little pod, and all those things are just things that I remember over and over and over again. And again, we go back and watch documentaries on our favorite musicians, and this is what this idea of this movie was supposed to be. Again, made in the 80s for someone like they were in the 80s. So Spinal Tap, always a classic to me. I guess it might be one of the beginning of the mockumentary styles too. I don't know how many more in the 80s came out like that, and then it came into, you know, the shows that are on Netflix, the American Vandal, The Office, Parks and Rec, those kind of like mockumentary style things. This is probably one of the original ones too.
I don't know. I feel like I don't know enough about the history of that genre itself to say so, but I would think that you would have to reach at least modernism, if not postmodernism, before you were able to like reflect that ironically like that. So I would doubt that there were things like, I mean, you know, you got Monty Python and stuff like that, but not really the same as shooting something and pretending it's real. I mean, so
like the Talking
I can't
Heads,
think of anything that came out before that, you know, that's well known at least. You know, CB4 in the 90s, you know, was kind of
1984. That's like, it's got to be one of those, and it's one of those things I didn't actually look up. It's like more of a conversation thing, but the idea of the talking head and the idea of interviewing someone
Yeah.
on a camera, but it's a fake interview.
Right.
It's and then what it's about, and the idea that it's a classic rock star coming back and trying to do their second, and then you watch like the actual documentaries on 1980s musicians, and it's like this is
Right.
so spot on, but
Yeah.
funny.
Yep. Yep. Cool. Number 4.
Yeah.
Harold and Kumar Go to White Castle. I also watched this not too long ago because I watch it all the time. If it's on TV, I'm gonna watch it. I had to show the boys, you know, and another thing that's just like boom, 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 you know, just funny. Like one of my favorite parts of the movie is just when like the like chubby, the extreme kids, you know, and they're at the convenience store, and he's just like does like a velociraptor noise at him. It's like not even a line. Like the guy doesn't even have any lines, but it's like one of the funniest moments of that whole movie. Plus all the actual funny things that happen. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Just like little moments, and they were always really good at throwing things in, you know, dubbed off screen. You know, you'd like hear a little comment at the end or whatever. But just a really creative movie. It's a road movie. It's a stoner movie, as most of my movies on this list are, and it's just I could watch that movie over and over again. Riding the cheetah, you know, the hang gliding, I don't know. It's just that the Chinese students party where they're just like a bunch of nerds, and then he cut to like throw his shirt off, like throwing bags around, and you know, it's just I don't know. I could just and it makes me think about sliders, you know. So
yes, I mean White Castle's delicious. If anybody's ever been to White Castle, it's a delicious place to go. Which is amazing that they were actually like they had to sign on obviously because their logo is on the cover and they actually talk about White House. So like they had to be approving this movie. It's not like someone just made this movie. So it's just awesome, and it's a stoner movie. So they're like, we know what kind of our clientele is too.
Right. Absolutely. Sometimes you just gotta embrace that stuff, you know.
But it's also funny because I feel like it's one of those. It came out in the time of like Scary Movie, and those movies that kind of like again made fun of other things, but honestly a little bit too odd and like off the wall, like too far. This was like if you removed the smoking weed from it, that it was just been a normal life kind of thing. So I feel like that's what made it a funny movie. And it's like it's still more of a like a slapstick like. It's just a stoner comedy, but it's like the weed and the smoking and the experience on drugs is what made them do what they did, which makes it I think even more funny because it's like you know anybody who's been smoked a little weed understands things aren't the same,
right?
And so it's just but they push it to that level like too far almost.
Yeah, and I would also say greatest cameo in the history of cinema. It is. Because if you remember correctly, that was the first thing he did.
Yes.
Basically, you know what I mean? Like that was the first thing that he had done since Doogie Howser. And anybody that's, you know, I mean, I feel like my age, I'm a little older than you. I'm not sure. Like I watched Doogie Howser live every night. He was like my hero. I was like, I'm gonna go to Stanford when I'm 9, you know? And then he just shows up like 20 years later as like this coke addicted hooker renting crazy man.
Did that key
Just
his future on How I Met Your Mother? Because that Harold and Kumar came out in 2004. The first season of How I Met Your Mother was 2005. So basically, I think people probably saw the people from How I Met Your Mother were like, "Hey, Doogie Howser, he can play on this show."
Absolutely. Yeah,
it really is a classic. I can just picture. I remember him being in the car. Like I haven't seen the movie in years, but like just him in the car, and you're like, wait, that's Doogie Howser, which is really funny because Taylor and I are watching How I Met Your Mother, Big Bang Theory, and there was last night's episode that we watched was Kuther mom and dad are on the webcam. And like, well, we've got to go. Doogie Howser's on TV, and they like close the thing, and Wallowitz goes, "Didn't that show come off the air 20 years ago?"
Yeah. I mean, like they, you know, like his nickname, you know, MPH was not a thing before that movie. It blew him up. He like, you know, like you said, got him that whole run on TV, but he started doing musicals and hosting shows, and very talented.
I wonder if he signed on because he's like, okay, I'm ready to dabble back in getting into the movie industry, the TV industry again, but I don't want anything that's going to be like super hard to do.
Right.
And then someone came, hey, we have a cameo in this movie for you. Like, yeah, I'll sign up for that so I can get my feet back under me. And it was like,
and they blows up. Like, I wonder if he expected that. You know what I mean? Like, who would expect that? You know?
No. Ryan Reynolds is also in that movie.
Yes, he is.
He's the OR nurse. Oh, David Krumholtz as well, who he's been on a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
Wasn't he on? He was on the show Numbers on TV. He was in the Santa Claus. He was the elf on Santa Claus, or the head elf on Santa Claus.
Yeah.
But yeah, great movie. Love that movie.
Yeah, definitely.
Number 4, Harold and Kumar Go to White Castle, and they also came up with a couple other ones that came out after that were not nearly as good, but that still had that same quality. Yeah. And then it's also funny seeing Kal Penn in other things now that are not that movie, because you're just like, no, you're this crazy stoner dude.
Right.
And now he's like a serious lawyer in something or something like that. I forget what it is. I just recently saw some with Kal Penn in it. I'm trying to look this up while we're on this. I don't know if it was a TV show or a movie. I don't know. Huh. Wait, they went to Amsterdam one too?
Yeah, that was the second one. Well, they tried. They get deported to Guantanamo. Yes. The second one was pretty good. The third one was actually pretty good, but as we discussed during the Christmas movies, like not really like it was more of a traditional kind. I mean, Harold and Kumar. It was good, but just they're kind of like descending in order.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, that's Designated Survivor. He was a one of the guys in Designated Survivor. He was like a politician. But which is kind of funny. So number 4 for me, going back to the 80s, another again. One of the movies that if you watch this movie before the movie it parodied, you just think the movie it parodied was an unfunny version of this movie, and that's Spaceballs. That we always joked when people were like, don't show anybody who haven't seen Star Wars Spaceballs first, because they're just going to think Star Wars is an unfunny version of Spaceballs.
Right.
But one of the things I think that the 1980s comedy movies have, like these, like these and a couple other movies that came out, Monty Python you mentioned, is it's just joke after joke after joke after joke. Nothing is serious in these movies. There's nothing that's just like there's no just random ums. It's like joke leads into joke, which leads into joke, which leads into joke, and you're just like 18 levels. It's an onion. It just keeps peeling over and over again. And that's something with it. It's like the Mr. Coffee to the Mr. Radar on the thing, the big helmet, the just everything that's in that movie is a joke. There's never a serious moment. It's just comedy. And I can't imagine being in the writer's room trying to write this movie and figure these kind of movies out. I'm just making like, okay, there's a computer over there on the screen. What are we going to do to make that a joke? Because it can't just be a computer on the wall. It has to be a joke. And then it took something that's beloved to all of us out there as Star Wars and to make fun of it. Like that to me just goes, I love Star Wars, but like to now make fun of everything that Star Wars did. And then you think fast forward, 20 years when Family Guy did it. And they did their own comedy half-hour special during one of their seasons to make fun of 3 different movies, the first 3 movies. But I think Spaceballs started that. I mean, like you could take a sacred piece of film to a lot of people and be like, no, we're going to poke fun at it. We're going to poke some holes in it. We're going to make fun of it. But again, I think the biggest thing to me and the reason why it's number 4 on my list is it's literally a comedy. Every single thing in there is a joke. And it's dirty for the time. Yeah, but it's also cleaner version of what you come out with a comedy nowadays. So that's also part of it. So Spaceballs number 4. I mean, Rick Moranis, man.
Yeah,
I was thinking about that. Young Bill Pullman.
Yeah, I was thinking about that the other day because me and Tiff were talking about like movies we watched as kids. You know, and I was like, we watched a lot of Rick Moranis when I was a kid. You know. I mean, he's in good movies. Spaceballs, Ghostbusters. Yeah, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids.
I mean, it's funny. It's like he's the epitome. I feel like he was the epitome of mic dropping. I'm going to make these 3 cult classic amazing movies and then just going to drop the mic and exit Hollywood. Peace. It's like you see these other people. You're like, why is he making Adam Sandler? Why is he making these movies? You should have just made Billy Madison, Happy Gilmore, and then been like, boop, see you later, and then come back and make something crazy good later on. But Spaceballs.
Yeah. Speaking of whom, you already mentioned my number 3. And I have a hard time putting it at number 3 because I probably watched it more than any other movie on this list, and that's Grandma's Boy. It is just it's just awesome. And it's like eminently rewatchable, and probably partially because I relate to it, just like as far as like what that video game life is about, like I was in college for a long time, like I get it, um, and just again, the characters, and just the little drops here and there, like it doesn't always have to be like the main focus of the scene or anything like that, but just with the robot legs and we Tiffany and I love that movie. It's like something we bonded over pretty early on, just like the fact that we both loved it before we met each other, and we have a dessert on the menu here called the Grandma's Boy, because our favorite scene in the movie is when he comes home and he's like all stoned, and he just like takes like a pan, like a cookie sheet, and just puts like all types of, like he's got like a banana and like some spaghetti or whatever, what I mean? And then, fried chicken. And he just like puts it all in the oven at the same time, at the same temp. And then he's just like going around doing his thing, opens up and just pulls it out with like bare hands. And it's so hilarious, because just like putting that like arrangement of food
Yes.
that they just put on that was just,
well, it's funny because like you look back on it and you can tell how many times you've seen this movie. I start picking up things like this, which is first of all, he walks in the kitchen, right? And he looks for a microwave. Right. And he goes, of course she doesn't have a microwave. She's freaking 100.
Yeah.
And then he starts putting it on the pan. And when he puts it in the pan in the oven, there's a banana on the pan. But when he opens it up and pulls the thing out, there's no banana. The people writing the movie and making the movie probably like, yeah, he wouldn't have put a banana in it.
Right. Yeah.
Then he throws his hand and he can't he can't work the next day because his hands are all bandaged up. Right. And they're like, what happened? He's like, well, me and my roommates.
Like, my roommates. Yeah.
But like there's small things, and again, what's his face? Start opening in the beginning of the movie. He's always in an Adam Sandler movie. I can't remember his name. He was the
Nick
male
Swartzen?
gigolo. No, male gigolo. Crap.
Schneider.
What was his name? Yes, Schneider. He's like, don't forget your smoking lamp, and he throws. He goes, oh man, that sucks. He goes, you never throw a man's bong.
Yeah, Dante is amazing in that movie.
Hey, dude, it's
one of my favorite characters.
It's June, and you're naked. Oh yeah, I am naked.
Yeah, Christmas tree. Yeah, just like the voice and the whole, everything. Just a great movie from beginning to end, in my opinion.
I agree, and Nick Swartzen is I would put him in the category of not as funny as Jack Black in your opinion, but like he's up there. He's one of the funniest people I've ever seen on
his TV
stand up.
Yeah,
everything is funny with him, and he's like co-main actor in that movie. If you think about it,
sure.
But the other people we're mentioning are just B actors in there that are amazing and have small little roles and just become really funny things. Cassie at my work, when she moved back to Bangor area from Portland a couple of years ago, she moved in with her parents to save up some money, which is fine, no issues there. But I kept on making fun of her whenever she'd go like, "Oh, my parents," I go, "Oh, your roommates."
Your roommates.
And that's from the movie. And she's never seen the movie, so it was funny to me, but no one else laughed because I'm like, "Oh, your roommates," because Nick Swartzen's parents, he lives with his parents, but he calls them his roommates.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I'm glad. The funny thing about that is I had what did I have? I think so. It's not in my top 2, but I had a movie in at 10, and last minute, like last night, I'm like finalizing my list. I slid Grandma's Boy in at 10. It probably, if you think about most watchable movie, it's probably the movie that I watched the most out of all my list. I just thought, I couldn't put it up that high. But now I'm thinking to myself that I probably should have if it's on your list as number 3. But Grandma's Boy is excellent. Great pick. Number 3 for me is Black and White. Can you guess the movie? Black and White, but made in the 90s.
Huh?
Is Black and White, but made in the 90s. It's from 1994. It's Clerks.
Clerks. Yeah.
So again, a classic quotable movie. I think one of the reasons why it jumps into my top 5 and then maybe pushed it up even up to 3 is the story behind making the movie is also huge to me.
Yeah.
As a comic book collector, I can really relate to a lot of things that Kevin Smith has with like sitting here in my office, my room here next to my comic books, looking at if I needed to do something serious, start a business or want to make a movie, that I'd have to sell all this stuff to do that.
Right.
And Kevin Smith did that to make this movie. And then the other stories behind it, like the reason why it says "Assure you're open" as the sheet outside is because he was filming it inside the place that he worked at during the day.
Right.
So he had to cover up that it was light outside or dark outside to film like it was afternoon time. So all those things go into it. But the movie's also freaking funny. And anybody who's worked in retail have to understand that we dealt with stuff like this and people like that. And it's like the whole idea that retail would be so much better if there wasn't for customers is true. And I think that it's a funny movie. I love that Kevin Smith also made a movie. It's one of the things I respect about the show Atlanta was that someone who created the show made themselves the B character. So like Kevin Smith is not the main character of the movie. He's a memorable character who has basically no lines. But he put himself in the movie, but not in a way that he's the star. And the same thing, the reason I mentioned Atlanta is because Childish Gambino, he makes himself the manager, not the actual star rapper. So I love that, and I respect that aspect of it. Plus, Kevin had enough on his plate, probably trying to make this movie. And then I watched the trailer again last night, and I forgot. So this movie was made for almost nothing. I mean, the movie was made for like $250,000 or something like that. Once they made the movie, a bigger production company, Miramax, spent a little bit more money on the movie to promote it and to release it. But they had a soundtrack was like Soul Asylum and like Alice in Chains and like all these bands. I'm like, that soundtrack was crazy.
So did you come across that piece of trivia?
No, what?
It's the only movie in history that the soundtrack, like the rights to the music that they used in the movie, cost more than the rest of the movie combined. It's the only one.
Like I'm thinking about it, I'm like, he won awards for like in like independent movie festivals and stuff like that because of how great the movie was. But when I'm like watching the movie and I'm like, I don't pick up as much on soundtracks and songs and unless they're outrageously good. Like if I'm watching something and I'm like, this music in this like is amazing. But at the end of it, it's like, and new music from, and it's like Soul Asylum and Alice in Chains. And I'm like, what the hell? That was on Clerks, and I have to go back and watch it again. But Clerks, and it being black and white, and it wasn't popular in '94 at all. The movie did okay in the theaters, but it's become a movie that people like. The DVD and Blu-ray sales, I guarantee, were probably even more than what it was in box office back in the day. Classic movie. And then Kevin Smith just made whatever the hell he wanted after that.
I would also put probably numerous Kevin Smith movies in my top 10 list if I had room. Mostly because I love Kevin Smith. I love Jane Silent Bob.
He's also off the wall.
Yeah, Dogma is one of my favorites.
Unbelievable movie.
Buddy
Jesus, so man.
Yeah, it's really, really good.
Yes. But so number 3, Clerks.
All right. Number 2, I'm still going back and forth between my number 2 and my number 1. I can't really decide, but I'm going to stick with what I wrote down. So number 2, Half Baked. Nice. Dave Chappelle. For some reason, he's been in like bit parts in movies and stuff, but he never got another vehicle after that. And I don't know. I think that movie is hilarious.
How different?
It's the best stoner comedy of all time.
Oh yeah, by far. But like, how different from when that movie came out for when he stopped his show?
It was quite a while.
Was it?
Because I think he like it was a while before he had that show. Like that movie's like pretty old.
Yeah, the movie's 98, so I don't think he was on TV until what, 05 maybe?
Yeah.
No, 03. So yeah, it was 5 or 6. It was 5 or 6 years.
Yeah, 5 years.
Okay, so that makes sense. I just thought from my mind I was like maybe it coincided with him like disappearing, but no, it didn't. He stopped. That movie was out for a number of years before he even got picked up on Comedy Central. But yeah, Half Baked, man.
Yeah. Harlan Williams is amazing in that movie. It's just again ridiculous, very, very rewatchable, very quotable, and just like in the same vein as Harold and Kumar, where you basically just have misadventures. I when I'm watching a comedy, I'm looking for escapism, like more than like, so like science fiction is escapist because you're like going to another world, but it's so based in our real world,
Yeah.
you know, and like it's like a reflection, you know what I mean? So like, or horror is like tapping into like a very primal thing that exists, and like comedy is using like the tapestry of the planet or the, you know, your life, and just making it absolutely ridiculous, like just turning it on its head, and you know,
I like how you say
that's
that
what
because
that is.
one of the things that we were watching The Big Bang Theory, like I mentioned, and Kuthapali on it mentioned that why is all the alien races in all these movies generally the same as us? Meaning that why isn't there someone with a penis for a forehead? Or do you know what I mean? Though, like
Yeah,
they're making an exact like he mentioned Star Wars or Star Trek. It's like all the
right.
alien races have the same. They can get into bed and have the same intercourse
Yeah,
than anybody else. They may be different color or different shapes or whatever, but like they're like it's in the
right,
exact same spot. And so, like
right.
you're saying, it's basically they made science fiction into our world though that you could relate to. Whereas
Right.
this comedy is like a
Yeah.
Half Baked and Grandma's Boy, like it's in our world, but they
Right.
kind of go this like and Harold Kumar, they go this other way with it, if that makes any sense. It
Right. It's
removes
just
you
like
from
a
reality.
heightened kind of like, well, like what you were talking about with Spaceballs.
Yeah.
Nothing serious. You're not
No.
taking anything seriously. You know what I mean? And I don't know. I
And
just
he's a one of a kind
that's the
man.
ultimate form of escapism because nobody's that funny in real life.
No.
I mean, I know some funny people, but
Well,
you're not gonna get like boom, boom, boom. You know what I mean? It's just like so ridiculous and just a good way to chill out and have a
along
good.
that line, it's the same thing why I appreciate what Marvel's done with Marvel Cinematic Universe to the point where it's a serious drama action filled
Yeah.
series, but they can throw in comedy lines here and there because
Right.
nothing is also serious all the time. Like this is one of
Yeah.
those
Yeah.
things that I always love about any serious movie or serious show.
Right.
You know, we're watching as a serious show, we're watching For All Mankind on Apple Plus TV Plus, which is about like space travel and stuff like that, or
Yep.
a spaceship program. And it's like it's a serious thing. Like people die and things go bad and stuff like that. But here and there, they throw a joke in there, and it's like okay,
Right.
because nothing is serious all the time. You need to
Right.
have that
Yeah. For
comedy.
real. Yeah.
And the same thing, but it's funny with some of these things is that there isn't things that are funny all the time. But
Right.
some movies just happen to be funny all the
Yeah. Yeah.
time,
Yeah.
and that's not
Yep.
real. So you can escape a little bit and be like,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
I just
Yeah.
need to laugh,
Yeah. But
which is
yeah.
great because 2020 has been a stressful year for a
Yeah.
lot of people.
Absolutely.
And
For sure.
sometimes you just need to put on a movie and laugh.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, I find that's what I'm looking for most nights when I go home is something that's just I don't have to really think about it. You know what I mean? And it makes me feel good. And you know what I mean? Half Baked is one of those things that
Who was
just
the co-star in that movie?
in Half
Jim
Baked.
Brewer. Brewer.
Oh yeah, Jim Brewer's awesome in that too. Yeah.
Yes. He hasn't
Yeah.
done anything else either, but
Yeah. I
is
mean,
it
they
because
just, you know, they took all the archetypes and put it all together.
yeah.
You know what I mean? You got the Snoop character and the John Stewart. You ever looked at the back of a dollar bill on weed?
Yeah.
You know, it's just,
Uh
it's, yeah, one of my
Harlan
favorites.
Williams. Oh, that's another one. Harlan Williams. He's
Yeah.
freaking hilarious too.
Yeah. He's the one that goes to prison.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's like a great premise too. You know,
Mm-hmm.
our friend goes to prison for,
Yeah.
you know,
Stupid shit.
killing a horse police officer. Yeah.
And it happened so quickly too. That's the funny part about it. Is like it's
Right.
like again one of those unrealistic things. It's like
Yeah.
he left to go to the store, and then all of
Right.
a sudden was in prison. Like he never
Yeah.
like there's no like time like that night he was in prison.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Half Baked, awesome pick, awesome pick.
Yeah.
I love this list because you know what's funny about it is like I feel like our list kind of switched this time, whereas yours is a lot more not mainstream. They're all mainstream because comedies I
Right.
feel like are mainstream, but I just feel like I wasn't expecting this list from you, which I love.
Yeah.
And so, and my number two is again, I'm going to stick with the same 1975. It's Monty Python on the Holy Grail. Again,
Yeah.
that line with that with Spaceballs. I think
Yep.
one of the reasons why it's above Spaceballs on my list is because it came out prior and they were the first, like almost the originators of this style comedy.
Yeah.
And obviously you're a fan because
Yeah.
it's a Terry Gilliam movie.
Yeah.
But again, the idea that everything is a joke, that
Yeah.
it's you see them walking, he's tapping the coconuts behind them, and it's just
Yeah.
it's that aspect, and it's not in my list obviously because I have two more left, and it's not top one is not this. It's probably not in yours either. But like, it's the History of the World Part One style too, where like even in the title of the movie, it's a joke. There's no part two.
Right.
It's just part one is the only, and they never were planning to make a part two. And that's the thing. And Monty Python and the Holy Grail is like everything is a joke. There's lines you can quote for days and days and days. It's more clean. It's definitely a comedy that you can show with anybody, even though it's from the 80s or sorry, 70s. And I don't know. I just, it's a classic. I watch it over and over and over again. And that's probably why I put it up there. And again, I juggle back between watchability and the classic part of it. Like it's just back and forth on this. My number one's a more watchable over and over and over again to me. But 1975, a comedy that you can still watch nowadays and the jokes will still land. That's a plus for me too.
Yeah, I watched it maybe a month ago. My favorite part's when they pull up and the people are outside working or whatever, and they're like, "Who's your king?" They're like, "This is how many times do I have to tell you? This is an anarcho-syndicalist commune. You know, we make decisions by consensus, and you know, it's so good." And
you have to pick.
Like, I don't get it. You don't have a king, and they're like,
you have to pick on those because it's like that's funny, but so is Life of Brian, and so it, you know, there's definitely movies that go in the same category of these movies, but I think Monty Python's one of the most memorable ones. And then again, quotable, like you were mentioning, you're talking about this favorite line from the movie. I mean, bring out your dead. I mean, the merely a flesh wound. There's just like, you can just say these small words. You don't even have to quote the actual quote. You can just say it's merely a flesh wound, and someone's gonna go, Monty Python, love that movie. And it honestly,
and just be like elderberries, you know.
Yes. And the funny thing is, probably if you said Monty Python to someone, this is the movie they think of too.
Oh yeah.
There's a couple other movies that they came out with that were excellent movies, and they obviously were more than just a movie maker. They were definitely a group of people that made some funny stuff. But this, like, if you just say this is probably what people just assume as Monty Python being is the Holy Grail. And yes, your mother smells like elderberries. Sorry, a little late to the game there, but like there's again, everything's a joke. There's nothing serious in these movies. The funny thing is, I tried to do like a little bit of like, I couldn't watch all of the movies over again, so I was like, oh, let me watch some of the trailers again to refresh some things on it. And some of these movies like Spaceballs and Monty Python, Spinal Tap, you watch they were crappy at making trailers in the 80s and 70s. Like, really those did not sell me on those. You can never show those trailers to someone and be like, you should see this movie. They'd be like, that looks stupid as hell. And the same thing, they showed all these clips from the movie, and you're just like, Monty Python, Holy Grail, it's one of my favorite movies. That's not cool because this trailer sucks. Well, I think back then I just took clips. I think nowadays there's actually companies that actually do this. Like their job is to make trailers for production companies. And back then it was just like, oh, these are clips from the movie. You know, let's put them in.
Well, they have a lot more information about their consumers now, so they can tailor things much better.
If that trailer wasn't watched a lot, trailer number 2 has a lot more different stuff in it. If it was watched a lot, they can repeat the same thing over again. And I mean, but even the trailer one of the trailers that I watched for it was the 40th anniversary when they released it into the theaters, and they kept on making jokes too, where it's like, see it for the first time in the theaters since the first time it was in the theater. Like, that's a Monty Python joke.
Yeah, for sure.
So number 2, Monty Python, the Holy Grail.
So my number 1 is probably on a list with Hot Rod, Tim and Eric, Tenacious D, Red Man and Method Man, Zoolander, Harold and Kumar, Grandma's Boy, Half Baked. Maybe the stupidest movie on the list.
Oh, yay.
Little Nicky.
Oh my God.
It's my favorite movie. I love Little Nicky.
That's amazing. I love it because it's an Adam Sandler movie that's not, I guarantee you, if you ask 10 people, you poll 10 people to tell them their favorite Adam Sandler movie, no one picks Little
except
Nicky.
For me, unless you pick me in that 10 people, because I love Little Nicky. It is so stupid, and I would watch it every day. I love it.
I've only seen it once. That's the problem here. Yeah. That's like it's probably because of how many great movies he's created.
Sure.
That it's like, because it hasn't lived up to the standards for a lot of people, Happy Gilmore, you know, is that it it probably hasn't been one of those ones that I've watched over and over again, because again, it's like if I'm going to watch an Adam Sandler movie and I have random little amount of time, it's probably going to be Happy Gilmore or Billy Madison or,
Right.
so, but now I'm just thinking back on some of the lines. Isn't that the way this is the record backwards?
Yeah.
Is it Chicago? Is it a
Yeah,
Chicago record?
Yeah.
I think it is.
Yeah, Chicago. And yeah, I mean, he's like sleeping on the radiator and like snarling, and the Popeyes chicken, Popeyes chicken is fucking awesome. I just it's an incredibly stupid movie.
Mm-hmm.
And it is,
but it's funny.
Yeah. And like, so I wanted to kind of talk about that. I'm not sure what your number one is, so hopefully I'm not treading on any toes here, but Adam Sandler is like very much like not, he's kind of ridiculed as of now because he's making all this other stuff, you know what I mean? But even like those movies in like serious critical circles were lampooned as being just like horrible trash, I love Happy Gilmore. I love Billy Madison. The Water Boy.
Yeah.
I actually wrote like next to Little Nicky, special shout out to The Water Boy. I like watching The Water Boy as a serious movie. Like you go into it and you just pretend the whole time that you're watching a drama. And I highly recommend that because it puts a whole new spin on it. But so like I was surprised because I've got Grandma's Boy on there, which came from his company Hot Rod as well.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize until I made this list how influential Adam Sandler's stupid ass has been in my, comedy collection. Because they're dumb movies, but they're hilarious.
But there's also some ones that he's made that are just kind of like good family movies, like Bedtime Stories and Click. Like there's some movies that I don't have a problem with. But the problem is that the movies that he started with, the Coneheads, Airheads, Billy Madison, Happy Gilmore, The Wedding Singer, Waterboy, Big Daddy, Little Nicky, Punch Drunk Love and Mr. Deeds. Those were his first movies, like the first like 10, 15 movies he made. Okay.
Yeah. That's quite a run.
That's a run. So if you talk about that many good movies and then you come out with movies that are not like, let's be honest, Hubie Halloween is probably a funny movie, but when you relate it back to what he's been making back in the day, it's a fall off of a cliff for him. And I haven't seen Uncut Gems yet either. Not a comedy, but I heard he's an excellent actor in it.
It's a stress fest.
Yeah. So, but I think that like I said, I think it's part of it is because some of these newer movies that are made from 2000 to today is the fact that he kicked ass so well in the 90s that he just fell off because you're not remaking that. It's the same thing with anything. It's someone, you create something, a hit, and you don't have a hit, you suck. And it's like, that's not the truth. It's, but so Little Nicky was towards the end of that run. And so that's probably what it was. It was like they were all, he made Happy Gilmore 4 years prior than Little Nicky.
Yeah.
People still had Happy Gilmore in their mind. So Little Nicky didn't live up to the standards to a lot of people. Happy Gilmore. And so therefore
absolutely.
It sucked,
I would say definitely it's not, definitely not his most beloved movie. And most people I think would have the same reaction that you did when I told you that was my favorite movie. They were like, what are you talking about? But it is, and I'm just gonna leave it at that.
You didn't want to do. You don't mess with Zohan.
I like that movie too.
Like I said, I don't have a problem with Adam Sandler at all. I think he's falling victim to the idea that he made such stellar movies in the 90s and early 2000s.
Well, the other thing I would say is, again, we were talking about kind of difference between genres. Like comedy changes faster and more often than anything else. Like, there's like things that are classically funny, but like as far as when you're talking about commercial cinema, it switches like every couple of years. You know what I mean? Like as far as what kind of movies people want to see, what kind of movie studios want to make, and in like completely different ways too. Like as far as what we're going to make fun of, is it going to be immature? Is it going to be political? Is it going to be, you know what I mean? And there's just like it's a tumultuous ocean of waves that you have to ride in order to be successful over an extended period of time. You know, we had SNL when we had Sandler and Farley, and you know what I mean? That was like kind of stupid comedy, and they came out of that and made stupid movies, and it was funny. But then, like, I think people started kind of want something a little more highbrow, you know? But then something else comes back and hits that off the side. So I think we talked about it, I think, in the last podcast that we did. Comedy is the hardest thing to do.
Yes.
So to even have that run of success is pretty amazing.
Well, I mean, I think before I get into my number one, I think it's part of it is that also that like Adam Sandler's a stand-up comedian, and his translation to screen worked in the 90s.
Right.
And it works. Like I said, it still works. His movies, the reason why he's getting millions of dollars from Netflix is because he's selling he's not like, they're not just throwing money at him because it's Adam Sandler.
Right.
His movies are obviously doing well. If they weren't, then he wouldn't be getting contracts from Netflix and such.
Right.
But it's just like, you know, I think that Jerry Seinfeld's only good thing he ever could have done on TV was Seinfeld. Like he's not like, it just didn't translate. I think Kevin Hart is the wealthiest comedian in the history of comedy. 99.9% of his movies are horrible. It doesn't translate to screen well. And so there's a lot of that aspect that comedy is hard, and it's even harder if you're already a stand-up comedian to just jump into it thinking that you can just put your comedy into the thing, unless you made a movie specifically based on your stand-up routine. Like if you had a stand-up routine that was great and you animated it and went along with it, then it might sell well. But so it's for him to come out and also have someone who, I mean, 2 years from now will be 30 years from when Coneheads came out. Wow. So you're telling me you want someone to have a 30-year successful of all those movies to be 100% great? It's not going to happen. Unless you made a movie, unless he decided to write and make all those movies in the first 10, 15 years that he did over that 30-year span. Right. Then it's a different story. But he's made, I don't know, this is only a top 10 list. Or this is only like just 40 or 50 movies here. You have to think that they're not all going to be good. There's some fun ones. Pixels. I loved Pixels.
Yeah.
Your place should have some new Pixels. You should have Pixels on replay in that place because you got video games there.
For sure.
So
I've said this like 12 times this podcast, but I watched that pretty recently too. Somebody came into the theater and rented it on Prime, so I went home and watched it afterwards.
Yes.
Yeah.
Pixels. Love it. I love Pixels. Grown Ups was fun.
Yeah.
You know, and he's also a voice in Hotel Transylvania, which is a fun kids movie, and the remake of Longest Yard wasn't bad. And I mentioned Click. I think Click was fun. I think the idea as a parent too, like knowing that, like, yes, are there times that your kids were doing a temper tantrum, you wish you could fast forward it, but not, you hit the button too far and he's a teenager. That's like, it's funny, but it's also like you want to be sad for the person. Like it's the same thing. So I think he's great. And he's funny, and as a funny person, and he's down to earth.
Right.
Like the dude wears gym shorts and a t-shirt on Letterman.
Right.
He doesn't ever dress up for anything. He's going to accept an award. He's wearing a gym shorts and a t-shirt.
Right. But, by all reports, like a great guy, and, brought his friends with him too, to do all this.
Yes.
We were talking about Grandma's Boy. Like that's like filled with just his buddies,
And he could have been in that, but he probably said, nah, I'm all set.
Yeah.
But, okay. I'll do my number one. You ready?
I am.
1980.
Ooh.
So what's awesome about this too is, and I'm glad you didn't do it too, but there wasn't a lot of intersection. So before I get into my number one, there's not a lot of intersection, which I wanted to make a point out too, is that Deadpool's freaking hilarious.
Right.
I think for what it is in a superhero movie, Thor Ragnarok, hilarious.
Yep.
I think Christmas Vacation, hilarious.
Yep. Oh yeah.
There's a lot of great comedies that also are in other genres, and we didn't talk about this ahead of time, and I'm glad we didn't, because it didn't end up coming down to that. But it's like there's certain movies I feel like should pull in. You should take their hierarchy of genres and keep them in their top one. So like Deadpool and Ragnarok are funny, but they're superhero movies. Right. And Christmas Vacation, Elf, and those ones are Christmas movies. And so like there's these small things that like there's certain ones that can transcend their own top genre, but I feel like there's certain ones that have to be that way. So that's why the list is the way it lists. I think there's some ones like Christmas Vacation could end up on the top 10 list for me.
Right. I had it on my first draft, but then I was like, I talked about it so much during Christmas movie podcasts. I'm like,
and that could be easily done. Again, these aren't like set in stone either. This is not like one of those things where like, But so speaking of Christmas Vacation, and
Yeah.
it's Caddyshack. So
Yeah.
Chevy Chase, Bill Murray, Harold Ramis directed it. We got Rodney Dangerfield in there. I like sports movies. I grew up a sports fan, so the sports movie part of it really has something to do with it, and that's why I like Basketballs on my honorable mentions. But there's something about that movie and being on a civilized golf course. I think that's part of the reason why that movie is so funny to me. It's like a golf course where you're supposed to be like anyone you feel bad farting on a golf course. I mean, we went to the golf course in Orrington for my bachelor party, and it's like you just feel bad. Like you crack a can open, you're like, oh, someone's gonna hear me, and they're even putting. and the shit that goes on in that movie is hilarious. And Bill Murray, again, he wasn't the star actor of this movie.
Right.
But he had such a memorable part of this movie that you want to remember forever. And he's just batshit crazy and trying to kill these gophers. And the music was great in it, and the actors were great in it, and the storyline's fun. Again, a movie that I could just throw on. You can either pay attention to it or listen to the quotes in the background. But to me, it became that the epitome of a 1980s comedy is something like Caddyshack. That I don't think would be something it lands today, but I don't think that's something they can make today in the same style and do successful. Because I feel like if they made that movie today, they'd go way more raunchy. And again, I feel like there's something about the funny comedy, but cleaner comedy, but still not clean. It's still dirty, but it's just funny. Caddyshack to me will be one of my favorite movies to ever watch of all time, which I didn't realize till last night that Taylor actually hadn't seen. So it probably will be watched tonight.
Yep.
But yeah, Caddyshack, man.
Yeah, that is a bulletproof number one. I mean, again, that's like one of those things where, depending on how you write your list, you know what I mean? Like it would be in contention for my number one all time if I'm making a objective list.
Yes.
Right. You know what I mean? It just wasn't, I mean, I saw it a lot, when I was a kid, and I've watched it as an adult, you know what I mean? But and that's kind of thing. As I thought about Caddyshack, I thought about Spaceballs. I thought about, I mean, you could kind of consider, Princess Bride.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Things I grew up with. And then all the Will Ferrell movies, you know what I mean? Well, maybe not all of them, but a lot of them, Anchorman, like amazing.
Dodgeball.
You know what I mean? But that was one of those ones that for me got played out because it was just like too much cultural.
Yeah.
Like
if you look
like, it like lived in the world for way too long for me.
Well, if you look at your list, I mean, Little Nicky, you have Adam Sandler's not the same actor in every movie he's in. He is similar, but he's not the exact same in every one of them. So that's that. Half Baked, again, one of a kind. I mean, the only one that's really similar to that is like kind of like How High. But like Grandma's Boy, again, my point would be is that the problem with someone like Will Ferrell in his movies, he's basically the same thing in everything. And so like to me, it's like, how do you pick which one is the funniest then? And how do you pick, I just feel like it's just like they're just pressing copy paste, changing the story up a little bit and then selling that. So but like Airplane, again, Naked Gun, those movies from the 90s. I love Super Troopers.
I was a big fan of Police Academy films when I was a kid.
Yep, which is funny because it's also the Spaceballs when he does the radar thing and he's making the noise. That guy from Police Academy is making the noise. Team America, I've said. Super Troopers, we mentioned. Ace Ventura. I know those two movies. I honestly think that I picked Dumb and Dumber, but Ace Ventura, Pet Detective, and Ace Ventura 2 might be two of his favorite, funniest movies he's ever made. Oh, yeah,
absolutely.
Groundhog Day, classic. Bill Murray.
Anything with Bill Murray.
And then lastly, before I printed this list, I lastly put on there Zombieland.
Yeah.
I think that is in that same category as Shaun of the Dead, where the aspect of a post-apocalyptic funny movie.
Right.
And I think they hit a home run with Zombieland Double Tap. I think Double Tap was great too. I mean,
it was good.
Those things, but if you look at it, I mean, I don't know what years all yours are made. None of our movies are made in the past 5 or 6 years.
No.
There hasn't
I think my newest movies are Tim and Eric and Tenacious D.
Yep.
And those are probably 10 years. Well, Tim and Eric's old newer, but Tenacious D is like 10 years old by now.
Yeah, and Hot Rod was 07, and Grandma's Boy was 06, and White Castle was 04. So it's like it's there. What I mentioned at the top of this was it's harder to make a comedy now. I feel like they try too hard. And I don't think things like the 80s comedies, like I mentioned, the joke after joke after joke, would land as well now with the current audience. And I think that they have to go, I don't know, super friggin' raunchy, which is what they've done with the Kevin Smith's time with some of this stuff too.
Yeah.
Like his Clerks is not nearly as raunchy as like Jay and Silent Bob's reboot or something like that.
Right.
Like there's definitely these things that, and we were watching The League. Have you seen The League?
Oh yeah.
XX, yeah.
Couple
so
times.
It's funny, like it was so funny. We were watching the show. I've never seen the show. Taylor had seen like the first couple seasons. Freaking hilarious show, but it's like there's times in it I'm just like eating dinner while I'm watching. I'm like, oh God, what the hell is going on? So then we switched over to like, okay, let's watch a comedy now that's probably it's made for CBS, which was Big Bang Theory. It's a little less.
Yeah.
But it's like they tried to push that boundary of funny is gross or funny is super sexual, and it's like there is this mixture where I think Grandma's Boy hits it. Yep. It's raunchy, but it's also fun. Like it's just there's a storyline to it. You're not just trying to
shock.
Yeah, the shock factor is not there. It's not the Marilyn Manson factor with
Yeah. The only other one that I would mention also was like actually on my list 5 minutes before we started is Borat.
Yeah.
You know, but it was another one of those that just like I heard that voice from everybody. There's a really, I don't remember, I think it was Nick Swartzen, his TV show. He did a skit where he had all these people and they're like in the hospital, like in a mental hospital, but their whole problem is that they like basically are stuck doing Austin Powers voice or Borat's voice. And like, so they're like in physical therapy trying to like stop making Borat voice. And it's hilarious. So, but I thought I just actually put on Borat the other night after work for the boys. And it's just really genius. You know, I kind of like the political stuff too, you know? So
I feel like it's in a category.
And the second one's really good.
Comedy. It's like, it's in a category of its own almost like, because the style it's made in, the style it's shot in, the idea that it's like some of the people they interview for at the beginning don't understand that it's actually a fake movie and that kind of aspect of it. So there's a little bit more prankster part of it that I think is pretty cool too. But
absolutely.
But yeah, I again, you can go on and on. Just talk about funny movies. There's just funny movies on funny movies on funny movies. So we talked off the top 20 favorite movies of 2010 to 2020.
Okay.
Number 1 is MacGruber, according to this list on Collider.
Okay.
Number 2 is Pop Star, Never Stop Stopping.
Have you watched that?
It is a funny movie. I will say it's a funny movie. That would be that would be the 2010s version of This Is Spinal Tap.
Right, for sure. I love that. Yeah.
Number 3 is the epitome of what we talked about, Bridesmaids.
Yep.
Bridesmaids movie is about bridesmaids. Isn't that weird?
Right. Yeah.
The Grand Budapest Hotel at number 4. Paddington 2 at number 5. Lady Bird at number 6.
Okay.
The Nice Guys, number 7. What We Do in the Shadows. Okay.
Yeah, that almost made my list actually.
The Lego Movie. The World's End. Again, same actors that are in Shaun of the Dead.
Yep.
But the other one I thought about that I honestly wanted to put in my list, and I didn't even put in my honorable mention, that I saw on this list afterwards, is This Is the End.
Yeah.
Like that, the creation of a movie around actors that are real, that they're playing themselves, and then the world ends, and it's freaking hilarious. So I'm a fan of all of those people when it comes to them being together. Too. So
that's another one that I would put in that category of like I could watch that movie over and over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
And again, this should have been a top 20 for us because there's like a bunch I feel really bad about leaving out, including that one.
Well, they're all asterisked at number 11. All of those movies we just mentioned are asterisked at number 11 for the list. So why don't you read your top 10? I'll read my top 10 so we can wrap this thing up and so people won't get bored with this.
Number 10, Hamlet 2. Number 9, Hot Rod. Number 8 was Tim and Eric's $1 billion movie. Number 7, Tenacious D and the Pick of Destiny. Number 6, How High. Number 5, Zoolander. Number 4, Harold and Kumar Go to White Castle. Number 3, Grandma's Boy. Number 2, Half Baked. And number 1, cinema classic, Little Nicky.
Number 10, Grandma's Boy. Number 9, Dumb and Dumber. Number 8, Shaun of the Dead. Number 7, The 40-Year-Old Virgin. Number 6, Office Space. Number 5, This Is Spinal Tap. Number 4, Spaceballs. Number 3, Clerks. Number 2, Monty Python and the Holy Grail. Number 1, Caddyshack. And number 0, all of the other movies we mentioned.
Right, exactly.
Well, it's still 0 or 11. 11.
Yeah.
So this one goes to 11.
Yeah. 11.
Why not just make 10 louder? Because this one goes to 11. The best thing about that whole This Is Spinal Tap scene is explaining anything to anyone ever.
Right.
About trying to get it through to them, how something works. And like, but why would you do that? It goes to this.
Right.
It's like, but I think it's great. I think maybe we laughed a lot.
Yeah.
I feel like it's a good list. I think it's fun. I like that the fact that Grandma's Boy was the only one we had on the same list, but it also makes it so we had a top 20 list, basically a top 19 list, 18 list, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, we had a lot of commonality on the outskirts.
Mm-hmm.
Or
it's hard.
A lot of movies that you picked that I could have easily picked. You know what I mean?
Well, I think a lot of these companies, Collider, for an example, that list I read off a bunch of movies off of, they didn't create that. They put a voting out there and they put it out there. Right. So if we were to say, here's our 40 movies, pick our top 10, I guarantee it would be a lot different than this. Because we're relying on other people to vote on the top 10 on that. So when you're trying to pick it yourself and trying to be somewhat objective, but also like, no, I freaking love this movie and put it in the list. Right. But going, that's a weird selection. It's a hard, it's not easy. I'll tell you that much.
No, it is not.
So, but Queen City Cinema Club.
We're working hard here.
You can watch all these, right? You have all these at Queen City Cinema Club.
Yeah, pretty much.
At least.
I think I have everything on your list. I know I have everything on mine.
And hopefully they'll make a really good comedy here pretty soon.
Yeah, for sure.
Again, there's nothing bad about any of the movies that have come out recently. I just feel like it hasn't been one of those ones that's like, there's definitely movies that have come out in the past 10 years that have catapulted into top 15 lists for me. But just comedies, I don't think are. I think it's when you mentioned it's hard to make a comedy. So
yeah, it's really hard.
You have to hit all the check boxes.
I'm still like stuck on this whole thing about naming movies, just like what, because I just saw a bunch more like Fist Fight, Let's Be Cops, let's go to prison. You know what I mean? Like, it's just
Tag.
I don't know why it bothers me so much.
Tag, basketball.
Yeah.
It's true.
I guess it's kind of,
Well, it's just the same thing when someone says the name of the movie in the movie.
Right.
What we watch, what was I watching the other day? That happened. We were watching something the other day and it said the same thing. It was like in the movie. For All Mankind. Yeah. In the TV show, he's like, we're doing this for all mankind. I'm like, God damn it. It's the name of the show. You can't say. Obviously, they had to for that because it's a space program TV show. But I was just like, you went an entire season without saying it. Now you're saying it in the second season, you dingus.
Yeah.
But sweet. I got to put lotion on.
Yeah. How's it healing?
It's healing great, man. Jay does a great job.
Looks good.
Clean. It's not following tattoo rules because the face is facing out, but I wanted him to do that. So supposedly it's supposed to face in. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I got another one in 2 months. I'm deciding on either in this filling space here or on the other arm.
Yeah.
But we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Yeah, I got 2 scheduled and getting my chest done next.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Great, perfect time right for the summer so you can take your shirt off.
Yep. Something like that. Probably not. I have aged quite rapidly over the last year or so.
Oh, really? I feel like all of us have.
Yeah, it's been a wild ride, man.
It has, and we're not over yet, but we're getting there. So Queen City Cinema Club, Main Street, Bangor. You can find them online, queencitycinemaclub.com, Facebook, Instagram, all the good things online. You're not renting online yet, right? You still have to call?
You
can you rent a theater?
Yeah.
You have to call to rent a theater, right?
No, you can call me and email me.
Okay.
Facebook, Instagram, smoke signals.
Mm-hmm. Swing by.
Whatever works. Yep.
You still Wednesday through Sunday?
Wednesday through Sunday. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, 4 to 10. Saturday, 12 to 10. Sunday, 12 to 7. We'll be looking at extending hours at some point, but I'm in no rush. We're doing well with what we got, and we're still not out of this thing. So
no,
And the
So we're
other thing
looking
is
at that.
you don't want to extend hours and then just be sitting here for 2 extra hours when you could be at home
Yep.
for no reason, you know.
And
So
that's
I think
the
a lot
things
of
we
people are still
discussed
staying home.
at OBC is the idea that we're gonna open back up. I think we're gonna start with Thursday through Sunday, just to get our feet under us, so we don't have to like worry about
Yep.
expanding staff because we're just gonna work with the staff we have.
Yep.
Eventually adding Wednesday, but I think OBC and Orno will never be open on Monday and Tuesday again. I just don't think we're gonna. It's
Right.
not worth it to us. We had
Yep.
2 slow days a week every single week for the entire year. So
Yep.
let's move those 2 slow days to the days that we're not open and hope everybody comes the rest
Right.
of the days and work
For sure.
towards that. So,
Yep.
but we're going to doing some more staff outing things at some point once things get more normal. So I
Yep.
know for a fact we might be contacting you about coming out to your spot too at some
Sounds
point,
good.
doing a private rental because we think that Queen City Cinema Club is the place to be. One of the
Sweet.
best pizza places in Bangor, supposedly, according to Bangor Daily News.
Top 32.
But
we drove by Margin Street the other day. We actually went to Taco Rita, but Hunter was like, "Is OBC open? Are we going to OBC?" I'm like, not yet, but
not yet.
you know, we'll be there as soon as you are.
Yeah, we're getting there. We'll have some more news on that coming out soon. It's just trying to figure out the last things. I mean, yesterday was the original last, or we're recording this on a Monday. So this past Sunday was the last day that originally you were supposed to get unemployment benefits. So we were working with that and the PPP loans and all that stuff, trying to make sure our employees are taken care of. So there's a lot that goes into this, but I was like, someone asked me the other day, like, are you happy to be open? I'm like, yeah, 2020 has been a stressful year for a lot of things. And one of the things I had to deal with is that like, I had to have 2 grand openings again. Like this is the second grand opening I'm going to have, or third.
Right.
We had the grand opening a couple of years ago, obviously. Then we had the grand opening in July for our patio and opening back up to the public again. Then we shut down. Now I have to do it again. And so it's like planning everything menu wise, you know, staffing wise, scheduling wise. Let's just get this shit under control so we don't have to do this again in the future. I'm just tired of it. I just want to be open, normal business.
For real. I've got mask fatigue, so.
Yep. Everything. I think it's just everybody has.
Yeah. I mean, I was, you know, I'm still good at it, you know.
Yes.
I do it. I do it good.
To.
But I was like actually like able and willing for a long time, and I'm done with them. I'm so tired of it. Well, I take it off at the end of the night. I mean, part of it's because I'm working now as opposed to just like, you know, going to the grocery store once a week. You know what I mean? But now I'm working 13 hours with it on. I'm ready for, you know, things to get back to normal.
I think leave it at this too. I think the mass fatigue for me has been like I was wanting to a year ago to make sure we can get this done and over with, and then a bunch of people didn't follow the rules, and it caused it to go spiral out of control. So now I'm like I'm doing it because I have to, because the rules are there and I want to still be safe, but I don't want to anymore. Whereas back in March and April, I wanted to do my part. Now it's like I don't want to anymore because someone else didn't follow the rules like I did, and now we're all dealing with the repercussion of it. So, but come out, be safe. Josh's place is open. OBC will be open pretty soon. You're on Main Street in Bangor, QueenCityCinemaClub.com. Find them on Facebook, on Instagram, and all that stuff. Sweet. Another list done. We'll see Josh some point. We actually might record ours earlier than normal because I might get yours in to schedule it so that it's out when I have the baby, but we'll figure it out. There might be one more in between this, but we'll talk. We'll figure out a list. Maybe this time we'll do, these are 50 movies, put 10 of them in a list or something like that.
Top 10 movies with babies in them.
I also thought a cool one, and I mentioned it too, top 10 memorable moments or something like that from,
that'd be cool.
Like, you know, top 10, you know, moments that make you think, like we talked about like quotable things, top 10 things that are, and it could, you know, in comedies or in dramas or whatever, but it could be like specific moments from TV, and it could be ones that like, or TV from movies. They could overlap a little bit. Like if you mention something that's like in the same movie, but I don't know, we'll figure it out. I think that'd be kind of cool too. Like top 10, or I mentioned doing a music one where it's like top 10
soundtracks,
but not even soundtracks, but like themes or songs that make you think of the movie in a sense, like memorable songs. Like if you played the Star Wars theme song, would you remember the movie because of that, or what movie makes you think of it, or something like that? So we'll figure it out.
We've done some genre stuff, so we can start breaking it up and getting some more specific kind of weird stuff in there.
Sweet, man.
Yeah,
well,
absolutely.
I appreciate it.
Right back at you.